So I'm continuing my review of the new light tank lines introduced in 9.3 with something that should be familiar. It's the Tier 6 T37, which is essentially what the old Tier 5 Chaffee used to be before the patch. The Tier 5 Chaffee was basically stripped down a little bit, and then this is basically the Tier 6 version, which plays almost exactly the same. It's got a single shotgun and an autoloader. The single shotgun tends to be better for most situations. It just has better gun handling and better penetration characteristics, which make it better for the tank, in my opinion, than the actual clip, unlike the Bulldog, for example. And so this is Sand River, so in a light tank, a lot of times what I'll try to do is I'll try to spot this northeast the path out of their base. We can catch some guys here, get some early damage potentially, and I'm in a platoon with Aberus and Adroxus, so Aberus is going to go get set up, see if he can get some early shots. You can spot anywhere along this ridge. I like to try to get up to these bushes. The only drawback to getting to these bushes is that if they also have a scout go out early, then you can get lit pretty easily going out, but you're going to get lit no matter what. And so I'm just moving back and forth on this ridge right here. I'm out of direct fire. Only thing that can really hit me is artillery, and that would be a pretty difficult shot to make. And then I can just sort of poke up here and see every so often whether there's any other tanks coming along this way. So we pick up this T-34. And this is not a place where you want to hang out a lot. So we've pushed a couple of light tanks up in here, which is not necessarily the best position for a light tank. You basically want to go out there and then just turn around and leave. If you do go out there, you don't want to hang out over there. And so we're able to spot, the Waffle 9 and the Type 61 on the other side. This Type 34 that went across, Aberus is able to get him shot once. And we are having a little bit of difficulty spotting the other sides, but see this Wheezy over here probably just spotted me, so I need to slide off of here. Graceful as a gazelle. And then I'm not in any threat, so I'm just going to let it wait for the repair. And then I'm going to go ahead and leave here. So this middle area is still relatively open. Adroxus is going to go fill it. You don't really need to, per se. As long as you have somebody like a Aberus up here over here, he'll be able to spot them as they come over. As you leave this ditch, you always just want to make sure that they're not looking at you over on this side. And then I'm going to try to see if I can spot on the south and see what's going on over here. Both of our light tanks that moved up here died. They were in a relatively bad position. As I said before, if you're going to spot out there, you don't want to sort of stay out there. You just want to spot and then sort of get out. And see our other tanks, this IS-8, T-34, IS-2, they're not in very good positions either. So they're going to be able to be shot without being able to do much in return as well. And so they have a 1390 on this side. And the best place to shoot that 1390 is from where I was, but I don't really have that option right now, so I'm trying to save these guys as much as I can by keeping the 1390 off of them, but I can't seem to hit him, and Aberus is probably slightly out of draw. He needs to actually get a little bit closer if he wants to do that. So I'm going to slowly start heading back out this way. This is a really good position, the F7 position, to fire onto this south lane once they push. And then just the only danger of this F7 position is if these guys go over on this side and start becoming more of a threat. And then so you'll see from over here I'll have much better shots on that side of the hill. And Aberus is going to come over here and he'll be able to get shots. We have two Tier 9s up here against their E50. I'm still waiting for that to resolve. There's not a whole lot that I can do to help them at the moment other than try to keep these guys honest, more or less. So Aberus is basically going to take my position, except I think he gets himself stuck there. Yeah, he's stuck right now. He'll get himself unstuck eventually, but he'll sit there for a while facing into the wall. So they've slowly got this T95 coming across, but see how this T95 is coming across this overhead bridge right here. That's going to make him vulnerable to be shot, both by the artillery and by our guys on the ridge. And Adroxus had pushed out here, but he hadn't quite pushed far enough. It's kind of a catch-22. If he pushed further, it would have been easier for the T-34 to shoot him, but where he was, it was relatively easy for the artillery to hit him. And then as I'm heading out here, I see the Type 61 come in. I think Oberist right now has just almost wedged himself free, so I think he's actually free to do stuff now. I wasn't really paying attention to this Type 61. I didn't notice that he had the STA again, so I get myself shot in extra time here. I should have left after this shot, but and so now, unfortunately, I am one shot, and I'm hoping to get some help from this T-28, but they have this 1390 over here, who's might be a problem. So what I can do is just spot this type, and hopefully the artillery will keep him honest, because they have to realize that once he gets over here, then they're going to be in trouble. But that 1390 is also coming on the side, but these artillery are actually still safe as long as they stay below this ridge, because the 1390 can't actually spot them. But this Type 61 is going to push me, and I don't have the T-28, and I think Oberist just now got himself free. But the Type 61 rushes the shot on the way in. You don't want to rush your shot as you're sliding down a slope, and you certainly don't want to rush that shot. So we get a little bit lucky because he gets a little impatient and rushes his shots, where all he had to really do was just be sure to take his time. And then so now they have this waffle on the ridge, right? So you see basically Oberist is in a flank. Our T-54, 5120 were able to finish off that E-50 finally. It took some time, and it cost the 5120 his life, but the 54 is going to be kind of frozen there for a while. So I have to try to keep these guys from a position where they can shoot Oberist, because Oberist can now be shot from like this T-25 AT is going to move up into this town area as well, and the waffle is going to try to get shots on him as well as the 1390. So he's down to 177 health. You know, we're in tier 7 tanks. This is not looking the best, but this 1390 eventually just YOLOs in here, and he goes over towards Oberist, which actually ends up getting him killed. And see, all our T-54 really has to do, so we know basically where most of their tanks are. All this T-54 has to do, because he does have, you know, 1200 health, is just go either push the T-34 from the front or go around behind the T-34 and clear out that north flank, and then he's off to the races. But he pretty much camps the whole game. So right now I'm just trying to keep all of these guys essentially as far back as possible, because if you look at most of our large tanks, you know, the T-30, IS-8, the T-54, none of them really have any good shots on any of these guys, which is problematic.
It's a trap!
So this 1390 has moved up a little bit, and he's going to try to YOLO Bay. He's going to try to do a drive-by, which doesn't work. And so now I know that this Waffle 9 is up here someplace, so I'm fairly certain that I can get him in detect range. And he starts to try to slide down this hill to go after a bay, so I'm going to just start shooting him. And this is unfortunate because it's like, you know, that IS-8 and the T-30, you know, if these guys had been in position to shoot, then, you know, this wouldn't be an issue. They do eventually get in position to shoot, but it takes them a while. Alright, and so it's just a T-34, T-25 AT, and Oberist tells me that the T-25 AT has been shooting at him from the city, so I know, relatively speaking, where the T-25 AT is. I'm going to try to see if I can spot him. So basically the idea is that if one of us dies, as long as the other guy is able to kill him, then, you know, we've cleared out this flank. We know where the T-34 is, right? Okay, so I spot the T-25 AT as I go by, and I just basically assume that Oberist is going to kill him. And just as long as one of us gets him, that's all that really matters. As it turns out, he missed me, and Oberist is still able to get him, which is good. And their artillery kills our T-54 because campers. But now we know that the base is open, right? So it's really easy to push in on that side.
Penetration. Enemy armor is damaged.
And then right now we're just using this tree as a intervening bush.
They're knocked out.
That's something that you should try to do. As long as you don't get lit going in, you can just back up and use trees and or bushes. And that T-34 actually kills our IS-8 as well, but Obey is able to kill him because he doesn't suck.
Enemy is hit. It's a trap. Penetration.
And then
Enemy is hit.
a couple shots, and then I got him low enough that just artillery splash will be able to kill him, so and our artillery does do a good job there. And then I know that they have at least one of their artillery over there, because if that splash that you just saw wouldn't have been from this guy. So I start heading over there and see how he has to turn his gun. So what you want to do whenever you're against artillery is you want to move laterally. You don't ever want to be driving directly towards or directly away from them. So he had to shift his gun to the left and then shift his gun all the way to the right, which basically means that he has full dispersion. I mean, he still got a lucky snapshot off, but that's how you try to maximize your evasion of him. You don't want to make it so that you're driving into where they're already aimed or driving straight at them, either of those, or straight away from them. Either of those is the best case scenario from the RD's perspective. As long as you're driving laterally, it forces them to snapshot, essentially. And then this T-30 is, well, I'm fairly certain that the artillery is down here, but it doesn't really matter. There's 3 minutes left in the game, so it's better off if Ube just caps it out, which he is going to do. And so essentially what happened was, so get some early lights through this middle here. We did get a little bit of early damage. And we were basically able to figure out what they had here. We had some lights go here early, so we got a couple of lights up here. We were really passive up here in this north, even though that we had a large number of our high tier tanks. We had 2 9s up north. We had 2 9s camping on the south, basically. The IS-8 had initially pushed forward, but then he pulled back. Oops. And so what we ended up having to do was, once we lost the south, it took us forever to win that north, but we had already lost the middle. Obey pushed back up through into that F7 position, which is really good because his damage there is going to be much more significant than my damage there, and that also frees me up to sort of move around the map, because somebody needed to be there to actually deal the damage. And I think if you look at the actual scoreboard, it tends to reflect that. Yeah, so if you look at Obey, most of his damage came probably once he moved from that F7 position. I know he got an early shot on that T-34 as he was crossing through the northeast, but other than that, I think most of that damage came later than that. And so this is another example of, tier 7s or tier 6 tanks carrying in a tier 9 match, because your tier 9s are a little bit too passive. The T-54 and the 5120 on the north took way too long to beat a single E-50, and then it ends up that T-54 lost to a T-34 as well. We had our IS-8 and our T-30 on the south, and they also played pretty passive. They didn't really do anything of significance, and that's unfortunate. And for as long as the game as that was, it was 13 minutes or so. Our artillery, unfortunately, didn't end up doing a whole lot either. I mean, our artillery combined for what is that, 2,400 damage, somewhere in that range, which is less than Obey did in his tier 7 tank destroyer. But their artillery really didn't do a whole lot much more either, which was to our benefit. And then also they had some issues in terms of their tier 9s actually being able to deal damage outside of that Waffentrager. So we got a little lucky in terms of dodging some shots and things like that. But for a lot of these games where you're, you know, in the max tier for a tier 6 light tank, that you have to have those, you have to have some things break your way. But if you sort of keep your wits about you, and a lot of it is understanding where the enemy tanks are, and trying to find little gaps within which you can work. That's usually the best thing that you can do, because even though we were much more vulnerable, we were much more exposed in the tier 9s on our team, we were also much more effective because of that. And so if, for example, if the T-54 did the same thing that I did, you know, if he had went to the same areas, you know, he would have been better able to project and deal a lot more damage and control the game and you know, win a game in that sense. So anyhow, I hope that was instructive as far as the T37, which is essentially the old Chaffee, as I said, and thanks for watching.